So I'm what you need, and we're back with another video. This video is based on a reply to Showbiz the Adult. I think it's going to be an interesting video because there are a couple of things that have not been said that we need to say, which I think Showbiz did not cover. But if you guys haven't checked out Showbiz the Adult's video, I think you should on this topic because it's a good topic to talk about. All right, first of all, this came out because Showbiz the Adult, he had he was explaining to the fans, um, he was explaining to the fans the details of his fight with Canelo Alvarez so they would appreciate his position. Because actually, a lot of fans thought that Kovalev threw the fight after the fight was over. His fans, Russian fans, they thought that he threw the fight. And they were speaking about this. And Kovalev was responding to them saying, man, you guys don't understand boxing. How you mean I threw the fight? I didn't throw the fight. Um, and I think a lot of people just don't appreciate what Kovalev did in that fight with Buddy McGirt. And what Ellie Sackback did, which I thought was brilliant, was he reposted what Sergey Kovalev said before the fight against Canelo Alvarez. And Kovalev always maintained that this was a dangerous fight for him. He also maintained that he thinks he has the right team and the right game plan. He also maintained that Canelo is a very smart fighter and that Canelo actually has a lot more advantages than people are taking into consideration. So he had been saying that from day one. And in the interview, he said a lot of very consistent things with what he's saying now. Now, even though he used some hyperbole in saying that it was an impossible fight to win, what he really meant was it was very difficult to win. And for the people who were betting on him, and he let those people down, he was a little bit crass in how he said it, you know, that you guys should have known your boxing, you were ignoramus and stuff. And so he started town lashing them. But quite frankly, I think it's just his emotions were getting the better of him because he didn't, people didn't realize how much they didn't appreciate what he did in that ring. I totally appreciated what he did. But anyway, nonetheless, because he surprised me, to be honest with you. Raul Ramirez, what's up, my brother? Raul Ramirez 17, what up? I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail now about my take on it from Showbiz the Adult. Showbiz the Adult did a fantastic job, and you guys need to check out his video. But here is my responses to everything. Now, people say, Kovalev was making excuses, blah, blah, blah. Listen. This is my take on it, and I think it's a proper take. Okay, so this is what happened. Kovalev was responding to the fans who were disgruntled and they felt he threw the fight. Kovalev obviously did not throw the fight, but Kovalev had this statement to make. He said, coming off of such a tough fight against Anthony Yarde and doing a quick turnaround against Canelo, he thought made it impossible for him to win that fight. Now, he's speaking retrospectively, okay? He said he had many sleepless nights deciding whether he should take this fight or not. If you guys do remember, he's being very consistent because he had said, you remember Canelo had offered to face him, and he turned down the first set of offers that Canelo and his team had offered him. So he was deliberating facing Canelo. Even before the Anthony Yarde fight, he was considering facing Canelo Alvarez, and offers had been made. And Canelo was trying to get Anthony Yarde to have step-aside money so that Canelo could have faced Kovalev, so they wouldn't even be in an Anthony Yarde fight. Because Kovalev had just come off with the Elita Alvarez win. But Sergey Kovalev stuck to his guns, and he rejected Canelo's offer, whatever the offer was. I guess it was a small amount of money. Maybe it wasn't the money. Maybe it was the conditions. We don't know. But he rejected the offer, and he decided instead to face Anthony Yarde, if you guys do remember. Raul Ramirez says there should be a rematch if the fans feel the fight was fixed. First of all, that is irrelevant. I'm going to tell you why. So, Sergey Kovalev, he rejected that, right? So what he said was absolutely true. He was deliberating it. He had many sleepless nights. Then he thought about the payday that Canelo was offering, and he thought about his family security and securing it for his family, and that was some incentive for him to go on and face Canelo, even after the Anthony Yarde fight, that soon. And so he took the payday. Now, The conditions also were pretty favorable to him. It wasn't a catch weight. They always had the rehydration clause there on the lines. He knew that. And so if you listen to the pre-fight press conference that happened, the last press conference before the last fight with Buddy McGirt and himself, they were saying they don't exactly know what Canelo would be coming in with, but Kovalev in training camp, most important thing and the most difficult thing for Kovalev was cutting weight. And again, you guys heard it. Now, Buddy McGirt said he didn't have to work so much on cutting weight, but what Buddy McGirt failed to say is Kovalev could easily have been overtrained, which means Kovalev never went past 10 rounds. In his training camp, and go watch the Ellis Back has it up there, Kovalev didn't go past 10 rounds in his training camp. They was trying to isolate certain things, but so that he wouldn't be overtrained, he wouldn't be overworked. He never went past 10 rounds in his training camp, which explains why Kovalev, after 10 rounds, couldn't really do, was fading that much. He hadn't gone past 12 rounds in his training camp. He was trying to conserve energy for the fight. And to his credit, and to DAZN's credit, he got a nice little nap, a nice little sleep before the fight as well to conserve his energy. So all of these things helped Kovalev going into the fight. But he was going up an uphill task that I personally thought was very difficult myself. I thought that it was going to take a lot from Kovalev to be able to pull the win off of Canelo. And he was up to the task. Let me just say that. I was very impressed by him. The first thing that I mentioned all these points before. One of them was coming off of a tough fight and turning over into another fight. Now, Showbiz the Adult tried to say that Deontay Wilder was coming off a tough fight and he's going to go against Luis Ortiz. Depending on how that fight goes, he's going to have a quick turnaround against Tyson Fury. The thing about it is Deontay Wilder is not 36 years old. All right? Having gone through four extra wars before the Anthony Yarde fight. He had been through 2 Andre Ward wars. Then he was in 2 Elita Alvarez wars. And then he went on to have the Anthony Yarde war. So that's 5 wars in a row. Not in a row, because he did beat the WBO champion to become WBO champion. But it's damn near 5 tough fights out of 6. Okay. So he was going into the Canelo fight, and obviously he didn't have the health and conditioning coach he should have had to be able to help him to restore himself much more properly for this quick turnaround coming off the war that he almost got knocked out in. So that is a very valid point by Sergey Kovalev, and it's one I factored in. A second valid point that he made, which is also very valid, is the fact that he had to cut weight. This is something he's been consistently saying, but we just weren't paying attention to, and it showed up when he had to go on the scale. And he couldn't make weight like he needed to. He was off by about 2 pounds, if I'm not mistaken, which is a lot. And he was able to, take off certain things and get down to 1/4 pound. People were saying that's nothing. And I was like, no, this 1/4 pound is a lot to lose just before you go into a fight. And then on top of that, he had the rehydration clause. Now, to his credit, he explained before the Canelo fight that he had come into his last fights just 5 pounds to 7 pounds over the weight limit. 175 pounds. So that actually the 185 pound limit was not too much for him to be able to make. But do think about this. You never got to rehydrate back in between camps to your full blown weight, right? You still hovering somewhere within the vicinity of 10 pounds near to the weight limit. So think about that. And, for a guy that naturally is bigger, now you see Sergey Kovalev, he's filled out as he was doing the interview. You can see how much bigger he is. When you're not as healthy because you're still weight right now. Sean Porter, he's able to do it because he's got a special health and conditioning trainer plus the snack program, which is what Sergey Kovalev needs to stay at that weight at light heavyweight. Otherwise, he'd just be way too big. He's a big, big dude. And I've been making this point over and over again. So I do believe that Sergey Kovalev, for those 2 reasons that he made, which he was thinking about and deliberating if he had to face the Canelo Alvarez, I think those 2 points are valid points. Okay. However, having said all that, we already knew that was the case. Him saying that it was damn near impossible. If he was thinking that before, which he wasn't, then he would have not taken the Canelo fight, right? Were you taking the Canelo fight just for a paycheck? That's not what he was saying, though. He was saying, because even before the Canelo fight, he was thinking of winning, and he was thinking of other fights after the Canelo fight. Okay? And Buddy McGirt and they had come up with a great game plan. which backfired mainly because, as Sergey Kovalev explained to the fans, he explained to them actually after the fight with his team, he did it. He said it twice. I gassed out after the 10th. All right, it was boxing beautifully until I gassed out after the 10th, and he was 100% correct. He told people that he gassed out by the 6th round. He was gassed out. Okay, because Canelo was forcing him to fight at a high rate. He was throwing the jab much more than he usually threw the jab in almost any fight he's had. But the beautiful thing that Kovalev was able to do that I hadn't seen him do in other fights was his beautiful pivot work, how he was turning and also protecting his body while he was pivoting. I thought that was beautiful what Buddy Grimmer had him do. The other little things that I thought were really good that he was doing in that fight, and not only kept him in the fight, but actually had him slightly ahead in various rounds, was he wasn't just throwing power shots. He was looking at range. He was making sure that if he threw his power shot, whether he threw the powerful left hook or he threw the straight right or the right uppercut, like he caught Canelo with a right, not a right uppercut, he caught him with a right to the body, digging to the body. If he was going to throw those shots, he was going to make sure he was at the right range. And he can get, after he throws the shot, he immediately got his right hand back to his body and he pivoted. And I thought it was just brilliant work. Sometimes he stayed in front of Canelo too long, and that was a problem. But I thought that he was boxing very, very well, even though Canelo was still getting his shots in at key places where he needed to get the shots in to cripple Kovalev, to stop him. Canelo clearly was the quicker guy of the two guys, and no matter if Kovalev came in, without. So I don't think that Kovalev was that weight drained. Let's just get to the punchline. He wasn't that weight drained, but I do think that him going back to back with two tough fights like that also did take something from him. Now, was he making excuses? Yes, he was making excuses to the fans, obviously. But what I would say is that the fans were drilling him. And, they were talking about fixed fight. Kovalev is a fake. He's this, he's that. He threw the fight, blah, 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 because it's coming down on him. They're not coming down on Canelo. They're coming down on him. So he had to give a reply. One of his replies the first time was, how could you guys even say that after the fight was fixed? That's ridiculous, right? So he was, and he was talking about how, he was boxing very, very well, in the fight, and he was trying to win, right? So he actually responded to the fans on Instagram. He responded to the fans, and I saw it on some of his, not so much on his Twitter. I didn't see anything on his Twitter, but on Instagram, he was explaining to the fans. So he had to come up with a reason, just like how Manny Pacquiao came up with a reason with his shoulder. But the difference is Kovalev's reasoning is actually partially true. He was saying, in other words, he was saying it was damn near impossible for me to beat this dude. I was going on an uphill swing. I was going on an uphill battle. Okay. And the thing that Showbiz the Adult said is, losers make excuses, winners win. In spite of Deontay Wilder having a blown shoulder, in spite of Floyd having damaged hands, these guys got the W. And that's the difference with Kovalev. He always makes excuses after he loses. But my point anyway is that Kovalev really, those are valid points. Now, as to the actual fight being fixed, no, the actual fight was not fixed. Okay. Kovalev went into that fight with disadvantages. I thought he did exceptionally well in spite of the disadvantages he had. I thought he tried to throw power shots at Canelo, but Canelo's defense was pretty much on point. He knew this. Kovalev even explained before the fight that, yes, I'm taller than Canelo, but he's broader than I am. He said, look at his body. Look how broad he is. And he's explaining that Canelo can handle the weight when he gets the weight gain. And he said, Canelo don't got to lose no weight. He don't got to lose no weight. So he's going to come in stronger, actually, and more energetic with more energy than I would because I got to lose weight. So he explained that before the fight, and he explained why it was so dangerous. And he's right. That makes the fight much more dangerous when you're fighting dehydrated. And Kovalev seems to fight dehydrated for almost all his fights. Okay? So he says, you know what, I'm just going to have the power. I'm going to be bigger and stronger than everybody. Well, not stronger, but bigger than everybody else. So that's going to be my advantage. And I got my power punch. So he always comes into every fight dehydrated. Okay? That's just the thing with Kovalev. No matter what he tells you, he's not, Kovalev's like 100 and maybe a 200 pounder, really. Right? But he has to keep at 190, maybe, 192, 180, 185, 186, 187, 7 pounds off of his actual weight. So that's just the way how it goes. In the ring, after he trains and everything, he probably gets down to 187, 182, 184, 180, that kind of thing. But he basically is a big, big dude, okay? Now, having said that, though, those excuses that he had, I already heard those things. I was already factoring that in, and I thought he boxed extremely well in spite of all of that stuff. And I expected him to get knocked out in the sixth. And he told us that he really was losing his energy, and he was kind of he was kind of tired after the sixth. So that makes sense that he should have got stopped. Canelo thought he was going to stop him earlier as well. So that's kudos to Kovalev and how well he boxed. And this is why I said I was very impressed with him and what Buddy McGirt did. And he was in the fight all the way up to round 10. Round 11, Canelo took over. And that's because Kovalev had faded significantly enough. That's why, especially later on in the fight, he was just trying to keep Canelo off of himself. Okay? And Canelo was doing some great body work. That's another thing people weren't talking about. And his body work and his head work, where he could get the left hook to the head, his body work and his head work, and then those overhand rights that stopped Kovalev from clinching him, is what really had Canelo get the win. But Kovalev knew that Canelo was a very good, crafty fighter who was going to be very strong. And that's why he said, this is a dangerous fight for me. He was saying it over and over and over again. Did he feel he could have gotten the win? Absolutely. And that's why he was boxing like that. If he didn't box like that, after his loss, he said, you know what? People learn a lot from a loss. He said that in another thing when he was responding to people on Instagram. He said, people learn a lot from a loss. I'm going to come right back, and I'm going to win again, right? So Sergey Kovalev, the fight was not that. People saying that Kovalev said, he took the fight for money. That's not what he said, okay? He said in retrospect, the fight was impossible to win. He's being a little bit hyperbolic. He would know his body. He would know that he could only last 10 rounds because of his training camp, etc. He was not putting anything on Canelo. He still thinks that Canelo is a true champion. He's a great fighter. He just believes that given the situation that he had and his training and all of that and what he had to do and go through, that it was impossible for him to get the W, but he was trying. Did he think that all the way down? I think he thought it was challenging. Now, in retrospect, looking back at the fight, he realized that he was going to gas out anyway. And so he's saying that for his situation, how he was feeling, he thought it was going to be impossible to win because he had all this uphill battle to deal with. Of course, true champions get the W somehow, some way anyway. But, it is what it is, But he had to answer his fans, and they were getting vicious on him. And so this is where he came through and said what he said. He was not saying that he threw the fight. He wasn't saying that he took the fight because of the money. He said what convinced him to take the fight, because what I mean is, what he wasn't saying that I took the fight for the money because I didn't think I could win. No, he thought he could win. Okay, Buddy McGirt had a game plan. They thought they could win. After losing to Canelo, he's saying now it looked like it looked like an impossible task. He's just talking from emotion mostly. Of course, he could have gotten the W, just the way how he was boxing. But his conditioning let him down, and there was nothing he could do about it at the time because he didn't have the kind of health and conditioning trainer he needed to have to try and keep him in the fight even longer. Do I think that he would have gassed out anyway, or that Canelo would have still knocked him out? I think Canelo would still have gotten the stoppage even if he had good conditioning, because once again, Canelo constantly was working his body, and he was putting up just too high a work rate. You see, Canelo wasn't matching his work rate, and the reason Canelo wasn't doing that because Canelo was conserving his energy. And my suggestion to Sergey Kovalev, and I even went up on his Instagram and applauded him and congratulated him for how in spite of all those things, he was able to get the W. And he made me a fan, and I'm following him on Instagram. But having said all of that, I think that Kovalev needs to be able to do certain things in that ring. So he didn't have to pop the jab that much, because he was popping that jab way too much at certain points in time. Now, Buddy McGirt was very clear that, he wasn't looking for the right hand to stop Canelo. They said that in the pre-fight. They said, they're not trying to look for the knockout, first of all, because you don't get it if you're looking for it. It's just that Sergey Kovalev had so much amateur experience and so on that he wanted him to go back to that. So he was seeing the amateur background, amateur experience of Kovalev, little tricks of the trade. His body wasn't available as much as Canelo was expecting, or me. His stance was really good. Canelo even talked about how hard it was to get to Kovalev's body, which is really exceptionally good to hear. So if that's with Buddy McGirt, he could do that kind of improvement against that caliber of fighter. I fancy Kovalev's chances against everybody except for Artur Beterbiev in his weight class right now. Artur Beterbiev is going to take a little bit more strength and conditioning to be able to pull off the win. He went 12 rounds with Alida Alvarez. He said he was dehydrated again in the Alida Alvarez fight, so that would make sense that he probably had the similar sort of thing happening with the Canelo fight, a little bit more dehydrated than normal. But I still think that he fought a hell of a fight. I think that he's a really phenomenal. He's a better boxer than I thought he was. He's still got flaws. He's working on his flaws. Hopefully, if he works on his all-around game, he's gonna do really well. He's gonna do really well. And y'all don't know, but he got a couple more fights left in him. At the top level, Bivol a guy he could be very competitive with, and I think he can do some really good stuff with Bivol if given the opportunity. The thing about it is he needs to take a break. Maybe he had a tune-up fight first, and then look at getting back in there against Dimitri Bivol would be the appropriate opponent if he wants to get a belt. I don't think that at this point in time Bidibiev is the opponent for him because Bidibiev is a different kind of caliber fighter. I think that would be right now a risky proposition for him to just go in and face Bidibiev. If he takes care of Bivol, he might be able to become undisputed against Bidibiev if Canelo don't face Bivol first. So they're saying that Canelo might face Billy Joe Saunders. Canelo doesn't know who he's facing next. I don't know if it's going to be Billy Joe Saunders. We will see. I would like him to face Callum Smith, Canelo at this point in time. And but we'll see. Kovalev though versus Bivol would be a good matchup. I think though he would need at least 4 or 5 tune-up fights before he even tries to face a Bidibiev to make sure his style is perfected, so that when Bidibiev is walking him down, whatever, he can conserve his energy and still box him. Now the thing about it was Canelo was fighting Kovalev off the back foot. Kovalev was fighting Canelo off the back foot. I don't know if he's 100% comfortable doing that. That was another thing that probably burned his energy out. Let me see what you guys are saying in the chat section just to make sure, because I'm not getting any live feeds. Raul Ramirez says that explains why he faded in that fight. Yes, sir. That's exactly it. Yeah. Do you think there should be a rematch, or is that really unnecessary? I don't think a rematch is necessary, mainly because it was a conclusive win by Canelo. When you have a conclusive win, if it was a split decision, if it went to split decision, it would be a different story. But Canelo pretty much knocked him out. So I wouldn't have a rematch just to see Canelo do it again. Because boxers like Canelo, they learn from their mistakes. So Canelo's actually gonna approach him with a different strategy. It just wouldn't make no sense. I don't think so, at least. A rematch is not necessary in this case. There's a conclusive win. Canelo stopped him. It is what it is. He should just move on. But I don't know. If he wants a rematch, I guess he can get it. The problem with that is he needs a break right now from boxing, just to rest up his body, get his body back in shape, acclimatize to the weight. He should get a good strength and conditioning coach to help him lose weight, so that he keeps most of his strength. But other than that, I don't think that so it does put a little asterisk on Canelo's win over Sergey Kovalev. Like I said before, the rehydration clause is not really so much the factor. Now we know it's more the turnaround for Kovalev. But it is what it is. But this is my take on it. So that's my reply to Showbiz the Adult. I think Kovalev had valid reasons for thinking the way he thought, especially in retrospect. But I would say that he took his loss like a man, and that's what you got to do. Now, true champion can take a loss and bounce back. He just has to bounce back. And if he bounces back well, he'll be okay. Sometimes by saying certain things, it sounds like you're taking away from the guy who won. But in this case, I think what he said was valid. I don't think he took the fight for money alone. He took the fight because he thought he could win. But at the end of the day, he knew it was a steep curve to actually beat Canelo. But Canelo gave him all the breaks he could possibly get. Even the rehydration clause wasn't really that severe as I thought it would have been. So, it is what it is. But I think Kovalev should just learn from the experience and come back strong the next fight. So that's my take on it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave your comments in the comment section below if you want to say more things. Raul Ramirez, it's nice talking with you, bro. I'm out of here. I'm what you need. If you like this channel, you can like, subscribe, share my videos, as well as comment on them. And you can donate to my channel via Western Union MoneyGram. You guys have a good one. Peace.